One point I want to make, I felt a little bit uneasy with the Woodstock analogy. I liked it very much that it was not raining here today, so hope it keeps not raining the next days. One question to Hartmut as well, and then I will open the discussion for and to all of you. The central point of your talking of your concept is that growth, the problem of growth, and with growth is the need for growth only to keep the engines going and only to keep the system stable. But in the end, this is a very quite abstract and fuzzy criterion. So what is then good growth and what is bad growth? Which growth keeps the engine going and which not? Which keeps the system stable and which not? And who decides about that if it's not Harmut Rosa? So who decides about what is growth we really need for and which is growth we can, well.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's not an easy. I mean, it's not an easy to answer question. But I think you can actually see it conceptually. It's relatively easy because when people in the European Union, from Angela Merkel, actually from Merkel to Schröder and to basically all of our politicians, they always talk about the need to keep to start the growth engines. Hollande, for example, right now, but many others too. And there you can actually see this is not about satisfying a certain need, right? If someone says we need growth, period, it's obviously in the wrong track. If someone says we need more telescopes, I would say yes, go for it. I think so too. On more Pink Floyd CDs, but for me that's a huge difference. And it's actually, you see how the logic of blind increase enters our university minds, right? You can really see it there, and I think that's where we need to start with us and what happens to us all the time now. Professors like Lessenich and myself think, we might run, this program might end, we need more third-party funding. Let's think of somehow how to get it in, right? Or let's create some new way of attracting new foreign students or so. So the question is, if you have a research question first, and then you say, oh, this is such an interesting question, I want to get it funded, that's okay. If you say, we need some research program to get more third-party funding, what could we work about? Then it's wrong, right? So I really think it's an easy indicator. What is the impetus? What is the starting point? Is it growth or acceleration of a certain form? Or is it some real aspiration, inclination, or need? So actually it's quite easy.
Okay, it seems. Sorry. Yeah. It seems that Laura wants to put a question. Lele, for Laura, a question to Hartmut. Yeah, Lele, please.
It's a tragically difficult question to translate, so I'll do my best. Okay. So she started to pose the question when you did, made the example of the telescopes. Yeah. And the idea is. If I understood that correctly, the idea is, but it's not really a matter of needs, because every need, anthropologically speaking, is charged with desire. Yes. And if desire is a production, in a Deleuzian way, so then the problem for Deleuze was how to separate this productivity from capital. Yeah. So Deleuze. The problem for Deleuze was exactly how to decouple the productivity of desire. Yes. To separate, to cut.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Desire and needs. Yeah. When desire is production, it's impossible to separate needs from... Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I think that is a very important question, right? If Laura's argument is right, and I think it is right to a large extent, right, that our needs are produced by the system too, then my argument somehow is not sufficient, right? Because then, of course, we have a need. As I said, you're right with the telescopes. It's not true for telescopes, but for all the other things. that certainly is a problem. I mean, in the end, what I really think what we need is a democratic form of this sphere of resonance about deliberating about what we need or want and what we don't want or need. But the democratic, it doesn't have to be centralized. It could be small forms of communities maybe who decide on it. But I have another, because this question, I mean, can we distinguish? And I think we can't. Real needs and false needs, right? That's very, very difficult. But I think what we can really see in our own aspirations, I can see it from mine. I'm not talking about stupid people out there, right? I talk about what we do, what I do. And I think what capitalism does, it transforms our yearning, our need for resonance into a desire for products, for objects. You can really see it by looking at, you can either look at the advertisement or you can look at your own psyche, right? We think, I mean, the advertisement is very straightforward there. You buy this new thing, deo or whatever it is, shampoo, and then you relate in a totally new way to your family, to nature, and so on. So you see, they sell you a form of relationship. It's always a promise of relating to things. And you think you get the relationship by buying the object. And then you're always dissatisfied with the object, and that keeps you buying the next object. I think that's exactly the trick of capitalism, and we can overcome this in the long run, I hope.
Follow-up question or not? Yeah?
Yeah, well, I mean, the point was exactly like, what if contemporary capitalism sells experiences instead of objects? Like, in the 40s.
But it doesn't sell. Yeah, it promises experiences, but it doesn't satisfy them. But I think it doesn't satisfy them in the long run. It doesn't. I see it with CDs. I'm a junkie of CDs, right? And I realized finally, maybe I overcome it. The more I buy, the less I get out of them, right? And therefore, there's a betrayal in the system.
Okay. So I wanted to foster dialogue, but not trialogue. So unless Lado wants to give a talk on his own now, I would now open the discussion to the public. We have half an hour, more or less. As you see, you might pose your question in English, German, Italian, Spanish at least. So go ahead. I saw one. Yeah, finger. You please.
I'll try to make use of the resonance of my body. I think there is another problem with the needs. I owe these thoughts to Rosie Day and Paul Walker, who work on energy needs and who try to set up a system how to wrap their brains around how much energy does somebody need, does a house need. And they work in the UK, and there is a civic advisory body which tries to define what a household needs. And what they discovered in reading these reports of that advisory body is the needs grow because they are put relatively. So 4 years ago, children would not need a laptop. Yeah. Now today, this body correctly says children need a laptop to participate at school and to do the best as everybody else can. And I think this is quite crucial. So how do we get the relativity, which has been a good way to think about poverty and to overcome poverty for a long time, but how do we get this ambivalence of this relativity out of the society?
Yeah, I mean, I'm short. Yeah. That's a good suggestion because I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, obviously it's true, right? What we need is changing historically, right? And what you describe, that we need more and more energy, that we think, it's not just that we think we need more and more energy. You see it right here. I'm absolutely sure for this group of people, we use up more energy this year than we did last year, right? But of course, this is within this system of growth and increase. And that's why I say in the first place, we shouldn't be so much, I believe, concerned with shrinking It would already be a huge step if we overcome this incessant need for increasing what we need. So from what I suggest, I think the first step would be to just stop this logic of increase. And I think this would be possible at the current level of needs. And if we actually do this, if we jump out of the box of the neoliberal mentality, right, then we actually might be in a position to reassess and reevaluate our real needs. And I mean, of course, if the resonance idea is true, and of course it is true, then we might soon, that a lot of people discover that the so-called simple forms of life in nature or whatever it might be, or new forms of commonalities, satisfies their desire for resonance much more than the new commodity. And that might in the end lead to a decrease of energy of energy use. I don't know. I mean, you find out in the other panels.
We agree.
Okay. I'm sorry, I have at least 10 or 12 people who already have shown their fingers, and I'm afraid I will have to be unjust and discriminatory, so please don't mind about that. Yeah, I will collect 2 or 3, and we will go on now by gender justice. So the next one will be someone defining himself as man, and this is you.
I will try to be brief and clear, but I have one comment and one question for each. So the first is about governmentality, which is, I'm very in favor of the concept, but I think that the last years we have a different situation, especially for the pigs. Especially for the pigs countries, because you have referred a lot of times to heteronomy. I think that heteronomy is coming back over governmentality. Like we have an idea that governmental exercise of power is not the main thing, I think, now. I think that heteronomy is coming back as an external force that is entering the political field. So I don't think that, for me, we cannot see that thing that happens again after many years as governmentality. People do not want to be governmentalized now. They do not want to be in the situation that they are in Greece, in Italy, and so far and so on. So can we see what is happening now as governmentality, or no? Or is like we come back to heteronomy? This is the one thing. The second thing.
And the second, very, very short.
I will try. I promise. The second is about how capitalism creates desires, and how capitalism creates needs. I think that is a very big problem with capitalism, that is in the core of the mechanism, is that create needs without try to find the distance between what is happening. They invite us to consume experiences, they invite us to consume otherness to some extent. But I think that a degrowth society or a post-growth society is a society which makes people to understand, to realize the differences, to realize the otherness, and to try to bridge the otherness, not by eliminating the distance, but in a different way. This is, I think, the big difference between post-growth and growth society.
Sorry. Laura made a critic of the idea of scarcity, but we are short of time here. And I will have 2 more questions, and then you decide on how you react. So the next one is a woman. Yes, please.
I only have a film tip for you. If you want to no more read what they talked, but watch it. I have the documentary from Adam Curtis, Century of the Self. I really recommend it to you and to everybody here. It's putting in pictures what you said, you both. The Century of the Self by Adam Curtis.
Okay, thank you. This was not a question, so another woman who has a question? No, then you. Please stand up.
I have a question concerning capitalism, and I think that if you talk about capitalism, you always have to talk about money, and it's in a system where money reproduces itself. So the need of growth maybe comes from that. We always have to pay debt. And if we want to end capitalism, maybe we have to end the need to repay our debt, which we made up a couple of years ago. So is that maybe a point to discuss? Which way finance and capitalism sticks together?
Okay, and one last question for this round, please.
Eine Verständnisfrage. Also, wann unterscheide ich denn gute Resonanz vielleicht von schlechter Resonanz? Weil ich meine, ich kann mir jetzt zwar vorstellen, dass es in kleineren Kreisen interessant ist, aber ich meine, in Deutschland haben wir viel Erfahrung mit sehr schlechter Resonanz. Auch eine vielleicht Form der Resonanz.
Okay, yeah, I think I'll start with this last question. This is really important, right? It's important to me because I don't want to create anything that might resemble these bad forms of resonance which you talk about. And I think when you really think about it, it's very clear to see because I would say in the first place, because I mean the case in the Nazis, right, the National Socialism, and I think it's true with the resonance theory, how I like to call it, you can really see why the Nazis were attractive to many people. At least you can explain some form of attractivity because they really created spheres of resonance through music, through marches, through fires, through flags and so on. But I think this is, I mean, I think there are two things where you can see this wasn't resonance, this is echo, right? Yeah, because resonance is a relationship of answering. It actually relates to the first question, so I can take up these two. You're right. I mean, there's the experience, there's the yearning for experiencing otherness. But capitalism actually only sells you sameness, right? So people travel to Kenya, but then they live there. I mean, that's the classic example, right? But they eat and live within their own surroundings, and they have the iPhone with them and so on, so they still have the same. And that's exactly the thing. I mean, it's bringing the other within your reach, right? It's a nostrification instead of having a relationship of answering. What I call resonance, right, means that there is something that speaks in a voice of his or her own, and that in that sense contradicts you, right? It needs to be something going back and forth, and that's not what the Nazis created. They created something like an echo of identity, right? Sameness everywhere. And I think, but my main attempt to say to actually deal with a Nazi case or with these forms of cases is that their relation, what I call Weltbeziehung, their relationship to the world was in fact very repulsive, right? They created, I call it an echo chamber, an Echokammer of resonance, right? As an empty oasis or island of resonance is in a repulsive world. They had the idea that we have to destroy everything that's not us, the Jews and the homosexuals and the Slavs and so on. And they felt that we are in danger of being killed by all the others. It was a Darwinistic world. That was the idea of their world relationship. So this certainly wasn't a form of a resonating a world relationship, right? So I think the desire for resonance in a alienated world can create these dangerous forms you're talking about. I think that's it.
Yeah, I'm trying. So basically, there are at least two forms of governmentality, which are not incompatible, of course. Like, you know, in Foucault, of course. Like the first one is the American one, more subtle, if you want, more soft governance, and the other one would be the German model, which is more invasive. But in any case, the target is never the single individual or the single person or the single subject. It is the market, and then what is externalized is the guilt. Ex post, by post factum, like, you know, it's not there, but afterwards, après coup. It's very different from before. It's not a Fordist way of governmentality. It's a post-Fordist one. Biopolitical.
Okay, yeah, Adam, you can talk to each other. You're Italian as well? Spanish? Greek? Okay, oh, so, sorry. Who's next? Who's going next? The man with the glasses and the woman with the glasses. The debt question. We'll take this into the next round. Yeah? You remember it, Harmut? The debt question, yeah.
This for me means to achieve something. If I want to produce something, I want to achieve something, I'm going for the product, right? And if I'm having the notion of the fulfilled life as the good life, then I'm trying to collect as many options as possible in the world, which means I'm also trying to achieve something. So I am doubting if the problem is not the achieving mind, like always to achieve something. And this may be a challenge to your concept of resonance, because if I only want to achieve resonance, then I'm not changing my concept of, or my way how to relate to the world. So I would like to suggest that maybe we should focus on the process of relating to the world and not on the product, on the goal. And then the second point is, in both cases, I'm doing it for myself, right? I wanna have the product. I wanna have resonance. I wanna have a fulfilled life. And I'm wondering if it's not the case that by altruism, I'm much more able to feel resonance, because egoism and egoistic behavior is rather an obstacle to resonance.
Seems to have been a good one, so yeah.
If I got your question right, it was about electronic stuff. How much energy do we need maybe in our households? And when I was 10, I read some where just use 3 things at once. So maybe 1 light, 1 television, and 1 phone. So that's maybe might be a simple rule to keep the energy level.
The 3-in-1 solution, 3-at-once solution. Okay. So we have 2 suggestions and 1 question, 1 further question. Yeah, this is the round with the glasses. Your turn.
Ich möchte auch gerne die Frage auf Deutsch stellen an Herrn Rosa, bitte. Ja, an Herrn Rosa bitte die Frage. Sie haben davon gesprochen, dass wir quasi die Welt ja immer in Anspruch nehmen für uns. Also dieses Reach, also Zugriff zu haben auf alles.
Reichweite, Weltreichweite.
Und es wirkte für mich so, als wenn wir irgendwie getrieben wären dazu. Weil wenn gerade junge Menschen, und wir sind ja fast alle jung hier, gerade junge Menschen ein Bedürfnis danach haben, so viel Welt wie möglich irgendwie in ihr Leben zu kriegen. Und mich würde interessieren, was Ihre Meinung dazu ist. Was treibt uns so? Also ist es vielleicht Angst, irgendwas zu verpassen, oder ist es das Bewusstsein über die Endlichkeit des Lebens? Oder was steckt für Sie vielleicht sozialpsychologisch dahinter? Würde mich interessieren.
Okay. Ja, ich möchte ich fange mit der Schuldenfrage an, weil I talk in English, yeah, sorry. Okay. I mean, this is a difficult question.
Ideology involved, right? Is it capital or is it money, right? And can we detach the two? Because capitalism, at least in my understanding, always has this materialist underpinning, and it has many other side effects. I mean, I do agree that I do see this logic of how money gets into the world, right? Every $100 or euros which get into the world come at a certain interest rate, right? So the need for increase actually is involved in the circulation of money, right? But how this relates to the circulation of capital is very hard to distinguish. And I actually think that this money circulation thing wouldn't work without the capitalist underpinning, right? So it's not just the logic of money. It's still capitalism, but the logic of money and debt obviously is very closely involved. And I'm not an expert on this, but I think there might be a solution, right, in just having a cut on debts as a starting point in order to move to the best to a better world. But I'm not really an expert on this, so I rather want to be agnostic. I want to get to the other points. I mean, your point. What is the motivation, right? That is motivating you, but also probably me. But you're right with young people. I think there is a moment. It's this double movement, right? Of there are interesting things. You can actually move to new horizons, and you find it attractive to go abroad and study in London or go some other places, right? This is attractive, right? That we're bringing the world in, but there's also a moment of panic in what we do. I totally think it's true, and I find it most interesting with a view to the new media, right? I don't say, as you saw, I have a smartphone myself. I don't say this is the devil or so, but what is true is that I think what we desire there is signs of resonance. I think it's definitely true, because if you look at the logic of Facebook or of Twitter or of these other things, you want the world to see you, to hear you, to answer you, right? Get likes, get comments, make new friends, and we get in panic if these things stay silent, right? On the one hand, the problem is a young person recently told me, well, my friends think I'm dead if I don't connect on Facebook for 3 days or so, right? So that's exactly the anxiety, that the world forgets us, right? That we are not connected. And whenever the smartphone vibrates in your pocket because you get an SMS or something else, a WhatsApp a message, then it's like the world is calling you. But the problem is that this is it's not a real resonance experience, right? We would have to debate why not, but I think it's not a real one, because it doesn't last, right? It's only it's a short shock which actually goes through your whole body. It's the world resonating with you, but it's not sustainable in a certain sense, right? So I think the desire for resonance and the fear of living in a silent world which forgets you, doesn't see you, doesn't touch and respond, that's moving young people. But I found this other question, I have to say something about it, because it was very important, and now I have to think of what it was. I mean, yes. Now the first part was, isn't resonance, so I think it's very good. Both points are very relevant, right? The first part was, then we just try to increase resonance, right? I said so far we try to increase education and health and money and friendships, and now we also have to increase our resonance capabilities and experiences. And there I really think this is clearly false, right? Because you cannot accumulate resonance. You can really see it if you have some form of music which really touches you. My favorite Pink Floyd song, right? And then I say, good idea, I want to have it every day, and I play it every day, and nothing happens, right? This is the safest way to lose resonance, right? You can, and actually, if I try to instrumentally set the point, tomorrow at 6, I will have an experience of resonance. This will never work, right? Resonance cannot, in this sense, be instrumentalized and accumulated. There's always this moment of being Unverfügbarkeit. I forgot the English term for this, right? You cannot, Unavailability. Yeah, whatever. And the second part of your question, I'm short. The second part was the egoism. This is very important. Resonance is not an egoistic thing. You cannot have resonance on your own, because resonance is a mode of connecting. And the interesting thing is, on the other side, what you're connecting to, right, is something what Charles Taylor, my guru when I was younger, right, calls a strong evaluation. That means you have to believe and to act like the thing you connect to speaks in a voice of his or her own and is important to you. This is why it doesn't work. I cannot have resonance with the microphone or so, right? I can have resonance with nature because I believe nature is important. It speaks to me. I can have resonance in art because I believe this is really, that's how we talk about art. Art has its own logic, right? We cannot manipulate it, not totally translate it into economy and so on. And of course, it's true with social relationships. But therefore, it's not egoistic, right? You have to connect to something that speaks of his or her own and is important to you.
Okay. Last chance, last round. 3 more people, and then. No, you're not. Okay. You in the door. Yeah. You.
Louder, please.
Items that do carry resonance. So, for example, if we go and have an experience with someone, then we may have a gift that they brought us, like a Valentine's Day present, or we do accumulate these things, and they do have resonance for us. a piece of music that you hear when you're having a particular experience, you want to cover that with a piece of music. So there is an accumulation in that, in physical items.
Okay, two more. Yes, please.
What you say reminds me a little bit of the philosophy of dialogue, which I read some years ago, like Levinas or Buber, and maybe it's related to that. I don't know if it's, but then it's about teaching in the educational system, which we talk about on the afternoon, the sensibility and get concepts out of it, how we get ourselves more sensible to resonance. And to larger and wider rooms, alternative rooms for that ability to feel something again out of music, world, art, and also get the ability to understand these concepts behind, because a piece of art sometimes needs a little bit more of knowledge behind it to get the resonance out of it. So it's both. It's like educational alternative rooms and knowledge how you get these concepts out of it.
Okay, please.
I'm not sure if I'm listening with
louder.
I think I have to read Harmut Rosa because I'm wondering if, for example, the process of eventization is not trying accumulating. Exactly what you're describing. What I'm a little bit missing is the differentiation between individual growth and systemic growth. Because, I mean, if I think in my life, I'm 21, so I have a long forward, but if I would still live in my 20 square meters student flat, I think that there's somehow an anthropologic constant that we want to grow. Also in the material level. So I think that the question should be how are we enabling an individual growth without systemic growth?
Okay, time of confession, C31. One wild card for the guy on the floor, because otherwise he will hate me. So very short, please.
Yes, two comments. The first one is there is a nice paper by two psychologists, Carter and Gilovich, and it's an empirical paper where they show that experiential purchases are more relevant to happiness than material purchases. And the other question relates to what one of the people before me said. It's I completely agree with you with respect to resonance. And the question becomes how we become less prone of manipulation. So how we get this kind of, all those marketing activity, how we can, and for me personally, it was kind of engaging into a breathwork and meditation. So maybe we should just start standing up and hugging each other and creating some space for resonance. But no, but it might be yoga or other practices that, so I'm, yeah.
I mean, it's obvious. I mean, I'd like to start with this. I mean, I think two things are obvious. I mean, one thing is that many people now turn to yoga in forms of meditation and so on, right? In order to reconnect to themselves and to their bodies and maybe to the world. I really think meditation and yoga are about having a different form of relating. Actually, I'm puzzled for a long time that I thought, well, the interesting stuff about Zen Buddhism or so is that what they think is the best way of being, namely being void of anxiety and desire, right? Overcoming this is exactly what burnout is about. When you're in a burnout, you neither desire something nor but of course it's not the same, right? So I would say the aspiration is, the difference is that in one case it's being void of desire and anxiety in a state of resonance of I would say that's what they aspire to in Buddhism or so, and it's being void of being unable to desire and maybe even to feel anxiety in a state of complete alienation where nothing, burnout is a state where nothing touches you or so, and clearly resonance has a physical side to it, right? So I think even eye contact there is empirical proof from psychology too. Having eye contact to someone changes the way, the outlook on the world in a certain sense. So I'm not totally opposed to this, but I'm opposed to turning my concept of resonance in any way into an esoteric concept. So therefore I simply say no. Okay. Now with the other questions. No, I don't mean okay, growth. I agree. I mean, it's really difficult. I think it relates to what someone said earlier. Isn't there always, even in what I try to do too, is a certain sense of personal growth, right? Of transformation, of going somewhere. I think probably we cannot do without it, right? It's very hard to not do it. And then I think, I mean, on the one hand, there is this difference we were talking about many times. Is it something I possess or am, or is it a growth in a way of relationship, of process? I think that's a seminal difference. And of course, I think the worst part of individual growth logic is the quantification, like this quantified self thing. I mean, people really do it. They measure their steps, they measure their sleep, they measure their movements in order to optimize this. And there I think you could clearly see what's wrong with the wrong form of optimization, right? Whether we need some sense of growth for this other concept, I'm not sure, but maybe we do. Education, this is very important. I mean, I think Buber and Levinas, I like very much, right? They are really, that's really about resonance, relationships, Begegnungen, right? What is Begegnung in English? I forgot. Encounters, right? Yeah, forms of encounter with the world, and I think education itself can be an experience of resonance, right? When is education interesting? It's true for discussions like this too. Very often we just sit there and we are totally unmoved and untouched, and every time we have to force ourselves for attention. But then sometimes, once in a year or so, it happens that this spontaneously happens, right? You feel that right now there's something important at stake, and these experiences are totally important as classroom experiences. In my book I'm writing, I have one chapter on education where I try to distinguish between forms of alienation in classrooms and forms of resonance. And the first question was about items. I think clearly there can be resonance with items. That's obviously true, right? For many people, cherished objects, you even mentioned gifts, right? That's quite interesting, because then with a gift, the resonance might not be with a thing, but with a person who gave it to you, right? So you just use it but as a medium. But nevertheless, there is relationship to objects. I have a chapter on that too, right? Now I find it important. It's true. The way there is reification in the way we deal with things. If you look at poetry or so, there's always also this idea. Rilke, die Dinge singen, höre ich so gern, right? Listening to the sound of objects. It's possible, but you cannot. If you accumulate objects, you lose that sense, right? So even there is a different way of relating to things. Adorno was talking about this also with this idea that instrumental reason always nails down things. So I agree there could be resonance with objects, but I think that it only comes through this idea of strong evaluations. Only if you somehow can create really important strong meaning which you attach to the object, right? So meaning and object there go together. It's not the pure object, of course.
Is there anything you two want to add? Okay, so I'll avoid now eye contact with Harmut. So thank you very, very much to the three of you. That suffices, I think. So we had great resonance between Harmut and the audience, as was to be expected. We had some resonance between Lele and Laura. But thank you very much. Thank you. And so we four wish you a very nice rest of the conference. Have a nice evening. Hug each other, hug yourselves, and do what you want.